We're excited to share with you some of the findings of our recent comprehensive economic overview, excuse me, of Grundy County. This study and this data was all prepared by the University of Michigan. There's an organization called the Economic Growth Institute, which we contracted with to do a deep dive evaluation into our economy. But before I get into that, I want to give you a little background of how this all came to be. So the GEDC and the Chamber of Commerce applied for a $600,000 U.S. Economic Development grant, U.S. Economic Development Administration, their grant, and that was awarded to us, and we couldn't have done it, so I want to make sure I give a special thanks to Grundy County, who helped provide the match for this grant. But the money is being used to develop a Grundy Resiliency Project. So what is that? It's a project whose overall goal is to develop a strategic plan to make Grundy County's economy stronger, more resilient, more diversified, to withstand any potential shocks that may come, plant closures, expansions, economic downturns, whatever the case may be, that we have done the best we can to build a strong and resilient economy. This was precipitated, and really the grant was given to us by the concern that we had a few years ago now, I guess, when there was thought that some of the nuclear plants, including the Dresden plant here in Grundy County, might close. So what is in front of you today is really step one of this whole project. Before we can start to work on a strategic plan, we need to understand, and in many cases verify, what exactly are our economy's strengths and weaknesses? What is the foundation that we're building on or may need to shore up? So this study is really the building block of more things to come in 2024, when we will use this as a foundation to then go forward and do a strategic plan. So a few housekeeping notes before we dive in here. If you'll please ensure that you remain on mute throughout the presentation. We do anticipate there will be time for questions at the end. We'd ask that you use the chat feature, and then we will address those. And then also, you probably saw it click up. We are recording this presentation. We plan to post it maybe in an edited format for folks that want to go back and look at it, or someone that couldn't join us this morning. And then also we have the entire report. I think it's 60 or 70 pages in all its economic glory. And that is on our website right now. We set up a website called resilientgrundy.com. We'll give you that information at the end again, but you can dig into all of these charts and graphs and everything that you saw this morning. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and get us started. This is really just that the previous was the thank you page to Michigan, but this page I think is really important because the whole part about this project is this is not just the Chamber and the GEDC, but this is all of our community. And so public input, input from others is not only welcome, it's encouraged and it's valued. On this page, you can see thank you to our partners at North Central Council of Illinois Government, NCICG. I'll make sure I get the acronym exactly right. They are our grant administrator and are really helping us through this process. But the other folks on this list, the steering committee, you can see they're from all members of our community, and we really appreciate them. We're grateful for their partnership, their input and support throughout this process. So today, just a quick agenda overview. We're going to start with the industry overview, go into the economic performance. What does Grundy County look like in comparison to other locations, other counties, the state and the nation? Look at our workforce, always important. The real estate market. And then the last piece is really, again, how we got here and received the grant is to understand the economic contribution of the Dresden nuclear station. So we'll dig in here on the industry overview. So this chart looks really full, so I'll kind of walk you through it. But what it really does is it gives us an understanding of the industries that contribute the most to Grundy County's economy, either in terms of the GDP or gross domestic product, which is on the vertical axis, or employment, which is on the horizontal axis. The other thing to keep in mind is this is an average between 2017 and 2021, both, pardon me, of the industry GDP as well as the number of employees. The circles represent the average wage, and you can see the numbers are with those circles too. So in essence, the bigger the circle, the greater the average wage of the industry. So as you can see, utilities has a significant impact both in terms of GDP as well as in wages. In fact, if you look closely, you'll even see that there's a break in the chart on the vertical axis between 400 million and 600 million. We had to do that to get it to all fit into the slide. So you can see it's really an important industry for us. And the utilities category includes all of those that are generating power, or electric power, natural gas, steam, water. So think about Dresden Station, Aux Sable Liquid Products, the big natural gas fractionation facility that we have, the Morris Cogen facility that's located out at Lyondell, creating power. What we do not think is in this circle, well, I'm positive is not in this circle, is the brand new generating $1.2 billion natural gas generating station, CPV 3 Rivers, because that came online just this year. So that circle could be even bigger. But also notable in terms of the GDP, if you look behind the utilities, when we have real estate, and real estate is not just the buying and selling of homes, but it's also the leasing and commerce, rental and leasing related to real estate, manufacturing, wholesale trade, and then construction. From an employment perspective, again, this is across the bottom axis down there, we have the retail trade employs the most people, followed by construction and healthcare. So this slide really drills down into we tried to simplify from the previous slide, really drills down into our top industries. And something to look at here that really jumped out at us and jumped out at the folks from the University of Michigan were the average annual wages for utilities in the manufacturing sector. We know that roles within these industries are very high skilled, and their average wages certainly seem to reflect this. I also would tell you, keep in mind that some of these are average wages from 17 to 21. So we know that there has been price inflation, wage inflation, excuse me. So in fact, for example, the construction wages now, we have the most recent data, they exceed $100,000. So these wages are probably even a little bit lower than the market that we see today. The other thing to point out, the GDP for utilities is almost, is 650 million, a little higher. That's 85% greater than the next important sector for us. So, which is real estate. So in other words, I can't emphasize enough the importance of the utility sector in our economy, which is one of the reasons why we're doing this study is some of our dependency on some large employers and large sectors and how we can continue to diversify our economy. So the next page, what we've seen before, were all averages. So we want to understand the direction and maybe trends that we're seeing. And so in absence of a crystal ball, what we're doing is we're measuring the growth and in some cases the shrinkage of trends to help us better understand, make predictions, and position ourselves strategically going forward. So what we see on this chart are those industries that have had the most significant changes between 2017 and 2021. You'll notice the top growth industries for GDP of significant change. We have manufacturing, construction, transportation, warehousing, retail trade. And the other one I want to point out is the professional scientific services. That grew by 160%, both in GDP as well as in employment. So you say, well, what is this sector? Where's the growth come from? And we know the sector requires a high degree of expertise and training to provide services to clients. So that's really who it is. So think to yourself, accountants, engineers, architects, lawyers, researchers, that sort of thing. So although the numbers aren't huge compared to construction and trade and others, we have seen the biggest growth in this. So this, again, this is a trending, this isn't necessarily our largest, but it's those that have seen the most significant growth or shrinkage. You'll also note that in the previous slides, we talked a lot about utilities. Here you can see that there has been some shrinkage from 17 to 21 in both GDP as well as in employment. Frankly, we are still working to better understand that trend in the utilities industry, the negative trend. But we know there's a few things. During the potential scare of premature closure of Dresden Station, when employees retired and so forth, they weren't being replaced. So we do know that they did shed some employment during that period. And we also know that the energy market can be incredibly volatile for the pricing between that time. So we're still, again, trying to understand what this trend is. But again, that's the very reason why we want to do this study. So when we see trends, we see markets, we can make sure that our economy is as diverse and strategic as possible to withstand any downward pressure. The other great thing to report about utilities is, we use the sector 17 to 21, or that time frame, pardon me. And in the last 18 months plus, the nuclear energy and energy in general has really, the demand has grown dramatically, and have the revenue fortunes or benefits of this industry. For example, recently they reported that they were doing there's consideration for a new hydrogen facility at the nuclear plant in LaSalle Station. So again, that carbon-free energy is more in demand now than it has ever been and is being valued for being carbon-free energy. The other thing, when I look at the negative trend, I think, oh, but if I add in the new CPV generating station, that also will mitigate some of those numbers. But it's been really helpful to us. Also, you see the logistics and warehousing. That is also a growth industry for us. We're seeing a lot of interest because of our transportation assets. So this just gives us those trends, and we can watch and see where that growth is happening and plan for it, capitalize on it, and hopefully have a very compelling strategic plan going forward. So with that, I'm happy to pass over to Monica Shield, again, the business director here at the GEDC. She's going to talk a little bit about how we compare to the state, nation, and our neighbors.
Thanks, Nancy. So like Nancy said, next we'll take a look at Grundy County's economic performance as measured by a number of different metrics, helping us to understand how our county's economy has performed recently compared with the nation, the state, and other counties in our region. So starting off with GDP, this chart shows GDP per capita, which is a measurement of how the overall prosperity in the county is dispersed among its residents. So here, Grundy outperformed the national average, as well as most of its comparable counties between 2001 and 2020. So it was in the 54th percentile in terms of growth and the 95th percentile in terms of GDP per capita. So looking at the chart, the horizontal axis shows the growth rate in GDP per capita, while the vertical axis shows the GDP per capita in 2020. And these blue reference lines in the center show the US average for each. So you can see Grundy County in blue near the top, right below DuPage County. Will County, you can see in the chart as well over here in the bottom right quadrant. And Kendall is actually all the way in the bottom left corner because, as we will see in other metrics here as well, Kendall County is largely what we call a bedroom community, according to the data that this report is showing. So people tend to live there, but the wages of the jobs within Kendall and the GDP of what is being produced within the county don't really compare to the rest of the surrounding counties. So again, Grundy is in a comparatively really good position in terms of GDP ranking. Moving on to median household income, Grundy also does really well from a median household income perspective, at just over $81,000 per year per household in 2021, which had grown by about 14% in 5 years. So you can see that this is above both the state and the nation, and it largely reflected regional and national growth trends. So for context, Kendall saw 13% growth during this period and had the highest median household income among these counties shown of nearly $102,000. So again, these are people living in Kendall. DuPage grew by nearly 19%, and the median household income there was about $100,000. So you can see that as you move away from the city, the median household income appears to decrease, as would be intuitive. So DeKalb, LaSalle, Livingston, and Kankakee are each above about $60,000 per year. So again, Grundy doing well in terms of that metric. In terms of measuring economic distress or need in Grundy, data on usage of the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program can be helpful. So 9% of Grundy residents were enrolled in SNAP in 2020, which is a lower rate than most surrounding counties. Nationally, 12.5% of the population is enrolled in the program. Only Kendall and DuPage counties had lower rates of benefits received at 8% and 7% respectively. So you can see that most counties exceeded 10%. So looking good there as well. If we move on past comparing about different economic performance metrics and we dig into our workforce, Grundy County's average labor force participation rate in 2020 was 80%, which is right in the middle of the nation at the 49th percentile. Grundy's participation rate has actually declined by 5.7% over the past 23 years, however, placing us in the 30th percentile in terms of growth. Overall, Grundy's slightly below surrounding counties with labor force participation, but as you can see here, based on this chart, most counties are appearing below, in this area, are appearing below the average in terms of growth in labor force participation. And here's the US average, again, these reference lines. So let's take a look here at average annual wage. So similar to the GDP per capita we saw earlier, Grundy's average private wage for jobs within the county, so again, these are jobs in Grundy County over the last 23 years, is very high compared to the national average. You can see Grundy is way up over here in the upper right quadrant. And so this shows from 1998 to 2016. So it's a wide, a long time period of an average. So Grundy was in the 96th percentile for both average wage and average wage growth between 1998 and 2016. You can see Grundy is here, and looking for some of our neighboring counties, you can see Will County is over here at around between 1.5% and 2% growth in annual wage over here. And here's the annual wage just in 2016, and then a snapshot from 1998 to 2016 of how that average in Grundy has moved. So interesting metric there as well. Next, so more recently, so again, this chart previous ended in 2016. So moving us forward a little bit in time, more recently, the average annual wage for jobs within Grundy between 2018 and 2022 was just over $63,000, putting us only below DuPage County when compared to our neighbors. From 2017 to 2022, the jobs added to the Grundy County economy had an annual weighted average of $65,817 per year. That's down here at the bottom. So this number is one I'll refer back to as we look at the next slide. But here again, we see a data point just for context, reinforcing that Kendall County is a bedroom community, trying to make sense of this $43,000 a year number, with the average wage for jobs within Kendall at that lower mark. And Will County was at about $51.8 thousand for context. So EGI was able to use the data trends about the jobs Grundy County has added recently to extrapolate into the future, to project, should all things continue on their historical trajectory, where we may be heading. You'll see on the left, it projects the top growth occupations by 2033, it lists them out to be retail salespersons, laborers, truck drivers, stock and order fillers, cashiers, general managers, construction managers, and carpenters. The tops of each of the bars in the chart show future added jobs for each of these roles, and the weighted average annual wage for these new jobs is $53,186 per year. EGI has cautioned us that if we compare this average annual wage of new jobs to the county's current average annual wage from the last slide of jobs we've added recently, 65,817, and it becomes clear we may have some work to do to ensure that the jobs and industries that we're working to attract to Grundy will serve to improve the county's standard of living moving forward. An analysis of current job postings provides another way to look at this dynamic. So this slide shows current job postings by years of experience and level of education down here on the bottom right. It seems that most of the jobs posted recently are low skill or entry level. So their analysis showed that 50% of the job openings had no education requirement listed. So you can see here this blue, this blue here in the bottom right is no education requirement listed. And 60% listed no experience required here in the top left. So that's definitely something to watch as well in terms of the job postings and the jobs available in the county and the level of expertise and education required for them. Commuting rates are interesting as well for Grundy. So looking at commuting rates, about 3 residents of Grundy County commute outside the county for their job for every 1 who remains. So this chart shows ratios of workers staying in this column and workers commuting out in this column. We're exporting our talent as opposed to importing it, which is an opportunity for businesses considering Grundy County. They may be able to attract talent which lives here away from a commute. So compared to neighboring counties' commuting patterns, Grundy is similar with the exception of Cook County, where workers stay or travel into Cook. You can see here this ratio is a bit flipped. And Kendall County, a bedroom community again, like we said, in which 7 workers commute out for every 1 which stays. You can see that right here. So as shown in this blue table, like we said, again, for Will County and Kane County, the ratio is 1 to 2. And the ratio presented here mirrors the chart work location for residents of a county, this top chart right here. It just provides a different way to think about it. For this right-hand ratio, exporting versus importing talent, this looks at the ratio of those living in the county but employed outside, which is the green area in this top graph, which represents exporting of talent, compared to those employed in the county but living outside. So the green area in this bottom graph, this represents importing talent. So Grundy County exports 1.5 workers for every 1 worker that it imports. All the surrounding counties are net exporters of talent except for DuPage and Cook County. If we turn to educational attainment, so educational attainment data in Grundy highlights that we have more than the average level of individuals graduating from high school, which is a definite positive, as well as individuals with some college or an associate's degree. We have a lower than average percentage of individuals with a bachelor's degree or higher. You can see in this bottom row right here. This data combined with data about wages and income helps to validate the story that we all know from experience, that we have a very skilled, high income, but not necessarily highly educated workforce. And many people tend to ask about DuPage County for comparison. You can see here with that bachelor's degree or higher, Grundy is at 26.6%. compared to DuPage at 52.7%, looking at Kendall at 36.5%. So this shows some interesting comparisons to surrounding counties. Income inequality was a metric which we were very excited to see. This is a bright point for Grundy County as well. So the headline about income inequality in Grundy is that on average over the past 7 years, which is what went into this data, Grundy has done well. These data points represent a ratio of household income at the 80th percentile to income at the 20th percentile. The higher the number, the greater the division between the top and bottom ends of the income spectrum. So the lower the number, the more equal. On average, Grundy County households on the higher end of the spectrum had income 3.9 times that of households with lower income. That's what this average 3.9 means. Compared to neighboring counties, this is the 3rd lowest income inequality ratio below Kendall and Will counties, which were at 3.1 and 3.9 respectively. So Grundy outperformed the nation. So the US was at 4.9 and the state, Illinois, was at 5. So this is a great piece for us to know that in general, we have a pretty great level of income equality here in Grundy County. So after all of that fun data, I'm going to pass the mic over to Christina, who's going to tell us a little bit about the housing market.
Great. Thank you, Monica. Good morning, everybody. So moving on to the housing market, the median listing price in Grundy has remained above the overall state median for the last year and a half. In August 23, the median listing price for a home was $359,925, which is a 2% increase from August 22. The median listing price in Illinois in August 23 was $329,250. Homes have been going for about the asking price through Grundy, though Grundy would still be considered a seller's market, and that there are more people looking to buy than there are homes available in our area. The Housing Affordability Index score you see indicates that yes, a family earning the median income in Grundy earns more than enough to qualify for a mortgage on a typical home here. However, the average monthly mortgage payments increased by nearly 57% between Q1 22 and Q1 23, at which time the average monthly mortgage payment for a median priced home was $1,240. So affordability is something that we have to continue to monitor here. When looking at the rental market, Grundy's vacancy rate in 21 was only 2.2%. This was 3 times lower than the national average. It is a very tight market, especially up here in the northeast corner of the county. Monthly rent in Grundy increased by 11% between 2021 and 2023. And if the population growth continues without growth in housing stock and multifamily housing options, we would expect to see a continued increase in rental costs. 1/3 of rental households in Grundy were classified as cost burdened in 2021, which means that they were spending 30% or more of their monthly income on housing costs. The majority of these nearly 1,800 cost burdened households had an annual income of less than $35,000, though EGA saw cost burdened households all the way up through income brackets nearing $75,000. Almost half of renter households were cost burdened in census tract 1.03. If, as projected earlier, Grundy's median income decreases in the future while rental costs continue to increase, the feasibility of both living and working in Grundy County will decrease. So part of our resiliency and diversification planning includes a deeper analysis of broadband in the county, though EGI did provide an initial overview. Their data matches our existing understanding of the state of broadband in the county. Essentially, access is better in the northeastern corner of the county. 95% of households in the dark blue section subscribe to broadband compared to only 69% in the southwest section of our county. We know how important reliable, affordable, and fast internet is for access to opportunity in our economy moving forward, and we will be developing a more nuanced understanding of how these gaps may be closed in the next phases of our work. One specific area that kind of surprised us on the last map was the lightly shaded section indicating that the city of Morris has also had some broadband challenges. So we asked EGI to take a closer look at this. It appears that only 57% of households in the census tract 3, block 3 had a broadband subscription. That's a section just east of Route 47 south of the railroad overpass, in an area that we'll continue to look at. Updating our understanding of the role of Constellation's Dresden station plays in the economy, our county's economy, is a key factor for this project. Even though, given all of the decarbonization momentum we're seeing, the nuclear power industry is a very different place than it was just a few years ago. This contribution analysis affirms that Dresden continues to play an absolutely essential role in our economy, and we appreciate Constellation's support in providing some of the data that we needed for this analysis. Dresden's economic impact is presented on 3 levels. The direct effects are the initial jobs supported by the plant. As you can see, there was 719 as of June 2023. The indirect effects are the business-to-business purchases in the supply chain. These are the contractors, the plant's hires, and so forth. And this amounted to 160 jobs. Finally, induced effects stem from labor income from direct and indirect jobs being spent through the region. So jobs which exist in Grundy at restaurants and stores, etc., because Dresden Station is here. This amounts to 162 jobs, giving Dresden a total employment impact of 1,041 jobs. This represents nearly 4% of the total local employment of 27,000 in 2021. I want to note that this analysis was unable to account for the economic impacts of the outages, though we know these are a significant impact in our area. The chart in the bottom left shows the top 10 industries supported by Dresden. In 21, Dresden and its ripple effects accounted for about 6.6% of Grundy County's total annual output and 5.7% of Grundy's total labor income. Finally, Dresden Station is not only the largest taxpayer in the county, but the tax contributions of its indirect and induced effects are also significant. The first column, which is the sub-county general, refers to cities or townships, while the second column, the sub-county special, refers to districts like police, fire, and schools. As you can see, the total impact in 21 at the municipal and township level was estimated to be about 3.7 million. For our schools, fire, and police, 24.5 million. And for the county, it's 3 million. So assuming that you did not get enough data here in this presentation, the full report goes into much more detail on all of these topics and is available at resilientgrundy.com. The entire point of this data, which we are very grateful to have, is to make sure that the next step, the step in which we get to ask experts to help us develop a strategy to diversify our economy, to help make it more resilient in the future, is based on a solid understanding of our economy today. We're very much looking forward to the next steps, and we welcome your thoughts, your questions, and your feedback. If we're not sure on the answers, we'll certainly find that out for you, and we're very grateful for all of your support. Thank you for the engagement today. A huge thanks to EGI for conducting the study, to EDA and Grundy County for funding it through our grant, to NCICG for their administrative support, and to our steering committee members for collaborating with us to ensure that everything that comes out of the project will serve to make Grundy County's future a bright one.
Thank you all for spending your Wednesday morning with us on this deep dive. As Monica said, you know, Christina, ourselves, GEDC, always welcome to take your questions at any time. And the other thing too that I think is really important is we don't want this study to sit on the shelf. So if there's anyone that needs copies of it, has specific questions that we can dig in, that it can help your business in your strategic planning and your future planning, we encourage you. We hope that everyone will use it. And we look forward to using that for the next stage of our strategic planning study. Christine, anything else you'd like to add?
Nope, I just want to thank the GEDC and as well as the Chamber Board for supporting this, and we'll look forward to continuing the project.
Okay, everyone have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.